Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast. This is an invitation to radical reconstruction of a man's masculine heart and soul in a place of safe community where we dare to ask questions deep-seated inside a man and explore ways to help you become a better man, a better son, a better dad, and a better spouse. Well, happy New Year as we release this podcast. It is 2026. I got to say, and I'm going to say it this way intentionally, I really feel like this is going to be a kick-ass year on a number of fronts. So thank you for being along for the ride. Now, a couple things for you. I've been talking about this. Of course, True Man Inner Circle is something that we're going to kick off this year. That is the latest and greatest newsletter where we want to get your week off to a great start by giving you a couple of things that you can work on each and every week and just how can you become a better true man? If you ever wondered that, well, this is a little additional feature that we're going to kick out to you. And, it's going to be a great way to stay informed of what's going on in the true man world as we make a number of changes, a number of things going on this year, including speaking. So if you got a men's group someplace at your church or at your place of work or wherever it may be, and you want me to come in and talk about predominantly the power of asking for help, because I got to say, boy, the more I talk about this, the more I find out that people are really excited about hearing how they can be better at asking for help. So many of us bury our thoughts and feelings down deep in our soul. And I got to say, that is a place of weakness, not strength. And so that's something that I love to go out and talk about. If you go to my website, truemanlifecoaching.com, you can find my speaking page. There's more about the power of asking for help on the website. I've highlighted that because that is going to be something that I go out and talk about a lot. And of course, also on my website, truemanlifecoaching.com, you can head on over to the book page, pick up a copy of True Man, True Ways, a roadmap of discovery to the masculine heart, and check that out. Let me know what you think. And of course, you can find many other things on there. You can sign up for the True Man Inner Circle newsletter on the homepage there, about midway through the page. You'll find a place where you can sign up for that newsletter. And of course, we will certainly put that in the show notes today. But as I was talking with somebody, and this is where, boy, the amount of material that comes out of conversations with people, right? I mean, because everyday people having everyday things going on in their lives. So, it's interesting how when I have these conversations, how these little things come up. But today we're going to talk a little about character. Now, isn't that interesting? I feel like growing up, this was a word that used to get thrown around quite a bit, but character, just not a word that we talk much about in this day and age. And it's really beginning to show up, isn't it? Boy, the lack of character that people have in their lives is simply incredible to me. But I think that character is really the backbone of becoming a true man. So let's kick off the year by talking about character. A lot of people have forgotten that it matters. Talent opens doors, certainly, but character keeps them open, doesn't it? Success can elevate a man, but character keeps him from falling, doesn't he? How many people have we seen, become successful and then they do something idiotic and, they fall from grace? And timing, well, God's timing, right? Often it has more to do with character than competence. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. So let me ask you right out of the gate, who are you becoming while you're waiting? Now, I will tell you, I'm not a huge fan of that word waiting. I like to think of it as, there's something down the line for me, but that word waiting, man, doesn't it just drive you bananas? But who are you becoming? Well, you're waiting. Sometimes God has us in what we would call the waiting room of life. You ever been to a waiting room, right? Like the doctor's office, and you're just like, man, the clock is ticking, right? And sometimes life is a lot like that, this waiting room of life. And God, I don't think puts us there because he's forgotten us. No, not because he's punishing us. Certainly not. Not because he said no. I think he puts us there sometimes because we're not ready yet. Do you ever experience that? As I reflect back on my life, I can say that I've spent a lot of time in the waiting room And there are certain things that have happened. And now I look and I'm like, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I was in preparation for what was next. And really, which is where we always find ourselves anyway. But here's the truth that every man needs to hear. A delay is not a denial. It's not a no. It's not now. And that not now is often where that character's forged. A lot of times, that's where we find ourselves, up on the anvil, right? We want the promotion, the breakthrough, the platform, the financial win, the answered prayer. But God, well, he's far more interested in who we're becoming than what we're receiving. Because if he gives us the blessing before the backbone, the blessing becomes a burden, or it can be. So ask yourself, what if this lesson isn't about punishment, but about preparation? What if the waiting isn't wasted, but intentional? Scripture puts it pretty plainly, actually. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out. Now, that verse doesn't say might be found out. It says will. And eventually, what's hidden leaks, what's crooked collapses, and what lacks character, well, it gets exposed. Everything comes to light at some point or another. And here's the hard truth. God often uses waiting to reveal and refine what success would otherwise hide. Have you experienced that? Waiting exposes impatience. Waiting confronts entitlement. Waiting tests whether we trust God or just his benefits. So let me press you here a little bit. How do you behave when God doesn't move on your timeline? How about that one? Make you a little anxious? Have you experienced that? I know I've experienced it. But what do you do? How do you behave? Character is the determination to do the right thing, even when it's difficult, demanding, inconvenient, or painful. Character is decided before pressure shows up. Now, a man of character doesn't say things like, well, I'll see how it feels when temptation arrives. He says, well, I've already decided who I am. And that's why waiting seasons matter so doggone much, because they strip away the shortcuts and force honesty. They ask questions like, will you obey even when you don't understand? Will you stay faithful when progress feels slow? Will you trust God when results are delayed? Yeah, I've gone through a little bit of this in my business over the last few years. Am I prepared for the things that were coming at me? Were things on delay? Was I learning? Really most of the time has been spent in preparation. Just gaining understanding. Who do I need to have in my inner circle? Who do I need to get around? What do I need to talk about? What do I need to do? And a lot of that's game preparation. We talk about game preparation in athletics quite a bit, right? So, that's what practice is all about. You practice the way you play. You go to practice and you prepare yourselves for the game of life. And so much of these quote unquote delays are really, it's the preparation. It's the practice for what is to come. And so much of the time we forget about that. And in fact, much of the time, we're upset with God because it isn't coming faster. We live in a now culture. But God does not operate in a now world. In fact, character assumes that there's a standard beyond our emotions, circumstances, or frustrations. And Scripture tells us, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The world says push harder, make it happen, force the outcome. God says, trust me, wait, and grow. You see the difference there? And here's part of this is all part of what men struggle with. God never delays without purpose. God never delays without purpose. He hasn't forgotten you. He knows you. And he knows exactly what you need and when you need it. So ask yourself this. Am I trusting God's timing or trying to rush his process? What a question. Jesus didn't bypass waiting, and neither will we. Before his public ministry began, Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness, hungry, alone, and tempted, right? The devil was trying to get under his skin. And that's where character was tested. Satan didn't tempt Jesus with bad things. He tempted him with premature good things. He tempted him with provisions without obedience, power without patience, and glory without the cross. Jesus refused every shortcut. Why? Because character understands that timing matters as much as truth. So again, another question for you. Where are you being tempted to rush what God is still shaping? You know, God gave us free will, not so that we could excuse sin, but so we could freely choose obedience. Character forms when a man repeatedly chooses what is right, especially when it's hard. And it feels that way a percentage of the time, doesn't it? Trials are not evidence of God's absence. They are really often proof of his investment in us. He's always investing in us. And scripture tells us that trials produce perseverance, and perseverance produces what? Character. So when life feels heavy, when progress feels a little slow, when the doors don't open, the question isn't, well, why is God doing this to me? The question really is, what is God building in me? Drastic difference between those two questions. It's a drastically different mindset. You know, why is God doing this to me? There's no work involved in that. Maybe there's work that you need to do. What is God building in me? What is God building in me? How are you reaching out to him? What are you doing to progress in life? Are you studying his word? Are you putting yourselves around positive people in a positive mindset? Are you working on self-development? If not, reach out to me. I've got plenty of self-development I can help you with. Now, in your darkest moments, when fear is loud, when uncertainty weighs heavy, it's important to hear Jesus looking straight through your fear and saying, trust me, I'm right here. Not I'll figure it out someday, not figure it out first, right here. Waiting doesn't mean abandonment. Silence doesn't mean absence. Sometimes God is quiet because he's close. Have you experienced that? Boy, have I experienced that. So ask yourself, can I trust God when I can't trace him? You know, we live in a culture that rewards speed and punishes patience, don't we? More money, more access, more temptation, less restraint. We see this all the time, and here's where character is really tested. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because it's available doesn't mean it's God ordained. Character says, you know, I'd rather wait and walk securely than rush and collapse. So ask yourself honestly, where am I tempted to compromise just to move things along faster? It's a really good question to ask yourself. You know, waiting doesn't excuse neglect at home either. Character shows up in how you love your wife during stressful seasons, how you lead your children when outcomes are uncertain, how you carry pressure without passing it down. You see, your family doesn't need a perfect man. You've heard me say this before. They need a present, steady, and trustworthy one. So again, ask yourself, am I modeling trust in God or anxiety about results? Now, a true man is not passive and not harsh. He's grounded, firm in conviction, fair in judgment, steady in uncertainty. Jesus stood strong and remained compassionate. And there is your model. Because character knows when to wait, when to act, when to trust, and when to stand firm. So here's another question. Do people feel safer or smaller around your strength? Character is not built overnight. It's built in waiting rooms, wilderness seasons, and quiet obedience. Friends, God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't delayed without purpose, and he will never, never, never give up on you, even when you're tempted to give up on him. So hear this clearly. Delay is not denial. It is, in fact, preparation. And when the time comes and when the door opens and the blessing arrives, whatever it is, you won't just be ready to receive it, you'll be ready to carry it. Now, if this message hits you, don't rush past it. Sit with it. Pray with it. Let God do the work he's doing. And if you're ready to grow, not just succeed, but become the man that God is shaping you into, I invite you to walk with us inside the True Man community. This is how men are built. This is how families are strengthened. This is how character is formed. So join us, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, in the True Man Inner Circle. Get that newsletter. Be prepared for what learn about, what we're going to be doing in the upcoming seasons. We want to build a much deeper and broader True Man community where men can be together and learn from each other how to become that true man. And this is something that we'll talk about when we go out and talk as well. And it's important for men to get together in these intimate small groups and talk about things like character. It's how you will become the man that you want to be. Well, I hope you enjoyed this True Man podcast. Again, sign on to that True Man Inner Circle. Go out to my website. Halfway down the page, you'll see the sign up there, and we'll put it in the show notes again. And join us. If you'd like to learn more about character, if you want to talk more about character, you can always reach out to me at mike@truemanlifecoaching.com or hop on my calendar. It's on my website. Well, I really, as always, enjoy having you along for the ride. And I'm excited, and I can't wait to see where 2026 goes for both you and for me. God bless you. Thank you for listening to the show, and go out and have your very, very best day ever. God bless.